Hi, everyone, and welcome to Frances Fogel Story Strategist, the podcast and the YouTube channel. I'm here today with an extremely old friend of mine. Actually, he's a very old friend of my brother. His name is Joe Dives. What a great name. And Joe runs a company with a great name called One Giant. Joe is one of my agents of change with regards to storytelling. He's somebody that is going to share with us what he thinks a good story is and how he works with companies to support them in telling good stories. I am on a mission, as those listening to this podcast and following me, I hope, are becoming aware, to help purposeful companies to tell better stories about their heritage, whatever that means, and not just to use that for marketing and branding, but across four important parts of their business. So to use the same story to underpin their strategies for marketing and brand, but also for their team's well-being and sense of significance, for customer loyalty and a sense of belonging, and in terms of community care. And I'm really keen to stop companies with limited budgets working across those four practices in silo, spending loads of money and failing to make everything aligned, which I think is a great shame, because purposeful companies should exist more in the world, be more sustainable, and we hopefully will see more of them in life to diversify the economy and save the world. So I would like to invite you, Joe, please, to introduce yourself. Tell us about you, about how One Giant came about, your story, and then please do tell us about the wonderful, wonderful companies that you've worked with, and there's a few of them.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you, Francis. I'm wondering if, like, history, right? You talk about people's history and, like, why should people care, like, from the start, right? I'm thinking, like, what we help to do with people's businesses is, like, look at what is it they believe, right? What's their purpose? What is what is it, what's their purpose and what's their belief? And I can kind of share that. So we believe that if you can tell great stories, people will remember the truths within. And our purpose is to turn brands into legends. And that's been the motivation for growing the business. And so it's 7 or 8 years old. I came from a background of making documentaries with Idris Elba, which had, like, social purpose, and using new technologies to tell those stories in a kind of engaging way that hadn't been seen before, like for social impact. Then making quite a few films for organizations and charities to take difficult messages and wrap a narrative around them that would make them digestible or interesting or memorable. And then we noticed that there was an area of places and spaces, so the built environment, hotels, restaurants, where perhaps marketing and storytelling wasn't as refined or finessed as it could be. And we felt like there was a huge opportunity there. And that's been our focus really for 7 or 8 years. It's places, spaces, food and drink. And that's been where we're small, so we can choose to kind of work with the clients that we want to work with, and feel like it's a fascinating, and it's also, I think, quite a profound space. Like, good architecture makes and breaks cities, and buildings are just a wrapper for life. And so it's been a really enjoyable and challenging area to focus on. This, buildings, whether it's a single building, whether it's a company that works in that area, or whether it's for an architect, whether it's telling a story about a place or a new area, or a hotel chain or a restaurant. It's been really fun to use different storytelling techniques to bring those things to life.
so glad, Joe, that you have addressed this important question early, which is, and in fact, it's heritage rather than history that I use as a word.
Mm.
But I'm getting asked already, what do you mean by heritage? And what I am wanting to have more conversations around is precisely that. So one thing I can say for sure is, that doesn't necessarily mean your sort of ethnic origins, which, a lot of people automatically start thinking about when you talk about heritage. And I've myself brought buildings into this to give an example of, what else one might draw on to kind of get clear on what your values and your purpose is. To start with the heritage of where you are physically, and to think about what it represents and whether or not anything in that is actually aligned with what you're trying to do as a business, and then to have a really lovely story to tell. And I'm sure there's many, many other things. So I'm wanting to work with purposeful businesses in London and Sussex and Kent, and that's because and within an hour of London, north and east, west as well. And that's frankly just because I don't want to sit on a train for longer than an hour. I want to work with people in real life. I really like sitting on trains and escaping from North London for an hour where I can. And I'm also trying to foster a sense of starting with near to where you are for environmental reasons, apart from anything else. But for example, I would be really happy working with a vineyard in East Sussex, or a hotel that was a converted castle in Kent, and I think that so often people are sitting on, as I say, a gold mine of heritage stories that could very well tell a great, or paint a great picture of what they stand for. And it's unpicking and sort of trying to connect with where they are physically, mentally, and indeed intergenerationally, if that is what is at hand, at the core of things. So yeah, I'm really curious to hear what kind of stories and just to be clear, Joe makes incredible films. So One Giant, do you want to just maybe talk about exactly what it is that is the product that you?
Yeah, sure. So we bridge that gap between fact and fiction. So we work with businesses to find out what is the essence, what's at the heart of their offer. And then we wrap a narrative around it that is bizarre, different, interesting, and hopefully memorable. And so it's and filmmaking is really we work on the positioning for the brands, but also the filmmaking is really, that's the deliverable ultimately. Yeah, and but I guess I was just challenging you at the beginning about like history, because I'm where like, you go into I've been in meetings where people start off, hi, we're this age, we've been working for this long, we're this many people. I think it's like, it's so crucial. People have got such little time available that going in and talking about oneself from the off, it's like people's eyes glaze over. It's like, I haven't got the time. Like, I don't really care. Like, I care about my stuff, right? What about me? What is it that you find out about me? And I think and it's an interesting space that you're looking at in terms of that history and that heritage. And I think what we always do, we look to kind of toe that line of finding out what is the fact there, but how can we create a story around it that's going to grab people from the beginning and speak to them about something that might matter or might be interesting to them. So it's almost like, yes, by all means, tell people about your history and your heritage, but they're not going to listen unless you do it in a way that is interesting or relevant or personal or is attention grabbing, basically.
And I should probably thank you, because I should probably also flag at this juncture that I've been working in marketing and comms myself for 20 years, and in the last 2 years have built the Better, Bolder, Braver community for coaches, where we teach what we like to call people helpers how to put themselves out there in the world with more confidence, clarity, and joy. And one of the big messages there is be the guide, not the hero. And so what we teach on our course in terms of how to do good ethical marketing is really how to not stand on a soapbox and vomit all over the place, but be very self-aware, understand your own limits, boundaries, needs, and values as an individual, and build a business that's sustainable, but from a place where you're quite clear as to what it is that your customers need and want. And of course, often people know what they might want, but may not know what they actually need. And so we teach people about the journey of consciousness in marketing as well, which is to say, what message are you going to, yes, meet them where they are with, that's gentle and is resonant, but perhaps doesn't give away everything that you know they will need at the end of the day. So I think we're talking about that. I think we're talking about fostering a sense of understanding about not only how to craft a good story, but then how to use it in relation to your audience. So going back to my suggestion to businesses I work with, there are 4 audiences. They're either going to be people that you do want to sell something to. They might be people who are working for you that you want to make feel more included. They're people who already buy your stuff that you would like to appreciate more and make feel more involved in the process, or they are the communities in which you work that frankly you may not ever want to sell anything to but have a responsibility to. And each of those audiences has such a different interest in your business, and your story needs to be interesting to them based on who they are, where they are, and what they care about, right? I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, I think so. It's like it's yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and I think it's like we feel like a not a duty, but we feel like there's an opportunity to entertain. It's like, and I think business audiences are just people, right? It's not just because it's a company speaking. It's just people. Ultimately, it's people speaking to people. So we think it's an opportunity to like entertain first, and if you can create something that's entertaining, people might remember those little elements, those little pearls or nuggets of truth within it. So I often feel, yeah, people might start off and they talk to us and say, like, we really want to say this about ourselves, and I'm like, okay, but how do we take that, the truth, that what's the motivation of what's there, and create a story that's going to be memorable? Or how do we share something that they may not have thought about to give you the opportunity to share what you'd like to share, basically? So basically, we're trying to get, and I'm sure that you probably say similar things in your meeting, but trying to put yourselves in the audience's position, shoes at all times, and not to think, oh, this is a business audience. It doesn't matter. These are people who want to be entertained, who want to bring a little, experience a little bit of joy, basically, in their life. And that's what we try to do, like create little slices of joy. Because if we can do that, then yeah, we'll have their attention to get across the messages that our clients want to get across.
I'm really interested to know from you, because one of the things that you and I discussed when we bumped into each other recently and found out that we are in very similar worlds and would really like to work together is, when might I, so one of the things that I want to offer excuse me, is so when I work with a company, one of the first things that I want to do is help them to prioritize which of those 4 areas they need the support in more. And it might be that they're already quite clear on a story, perhaps there's a bit of crafting to happen there, but they've been really good at sales and marketing for ages. They don't want to grow very much. They want to become sustainable at the level that they're at, or the founder might be wanting to exit and leave a legacy, and they feel responsible for doing more in their local community, environmentally, socially, culturally, whatever. One of the things I want to do is help bring in people that I think are going to help them. So for example, in the marketing and branding space, it will be people like yourself, people who are, perhaps in the copywriting space, content creation studios, and I've accrued friends along the way across all those 4 departments. So if the priority is in fact learning and development, people, well-being stuff, it might be friends that I have in that space, coaches, community engagement. I have 2 degrees in which I kind of focused largely on corporate responsibilities. I've got lots of friends in that world and run trusts and foundations and fundraising, etc. So I've assumed so far that I would be bringing you in should a company, in my mind, have identified a great story and they need to film it for marketing and sales. But you're making me think maybe there's another time that you would want to be brought in. Or let's say I would bring you in when the story's already been established, and I think if they filmed it for either any of those four, practices, one of your films would be brilliant. But are you almost saying you'd rather be brought in earlier because you like that consultation bit of identifying what the story is? Do you hate coming in late when someone's like, "Oh, here's the story, Joe. We've already got it sorted"?
Look, I mean, I think we work in both ways. So sometimes people will have quite a strong sense about even an idea about what it is that they want to create, and I think it's we'll be the sounding board. We'll take it. We might script something up. We might give people a little bit of options. Yes, we can do this, but also have you considered this? Give them some options. But also, yeah, we even work at the very, very beginning to figure out what is your purpose, what's your belief, and then get really clear on that, and then wrap the and then figure out the narrative from that. So yeah, we can do either of those things, and we enjoy doing both basically at different parts. But yeah, interesting in terms of you're talking about the four different pillars or the four different areas of the business. Ostensibly will be hired to deal with marketing or advertising. Often if we are looking to encapsulate what it is that makes an enterprise distinct, or what it is that they believe, often a consequence of creating that film is it's shared internally. So there was one business that we did a film for, and they realized that they were not being seen by the investment community. They're a publicly listed company. They were not being seen by investment. They had changed their offer. They had many different offers in different sectors, and they had refined their offer, but they realized that basically the world of the investments didn't quite understand their offer. So we created a film that said, here's what we focused on, here's what we believe, here's us, said through the eyes of their customers in a kind of quite in a carefully structured way. And they showed it internally at an event, and I think there was 300 people at the event, and apparently they all stood up and applauded, and everyone was just completely thrilled. It gave people that boost, that sense of, oh yeah, this is what we're all working for, here's what we're focused on, here's what we do that is different. And they hadn't kind of anticipated it. It was ultimately for advertising and marketing, but they had that kind of internal piece that they said created such a boost internally. And then they also, as you mentioned, went on to show potential recruits as well, so people that they were earmarked to hire at a later stage. So yes, it's always mindful to focusing on the audience, but I think sometimes you can either be crafty intentionally or unintentionally. It can benefit multiple elements of the business.
Right, and you're making exactly the point that I want to make, which is what you might think you need, which is a video that would boost sales, is something that could be, if done in the right hands, something that is you can use across four incredibly important parts of your business. You may not even know that the other three things are areas that you want or need to develop, but as soon as somebody tells you the story of what it might look like for you as a business who's able to improve your retention, make people feel happier working there, so retention of customers and retention of teams, and also change the world in an amazing way, in a limited way that you can, and one film could make that happen, or could help support that strategy. And guess what, you're paying a quarter of the cost because you're not getting 4 films made. That's precisely the kind of support that I want to give businesses that have limited budgets, that could create something beautiful across 4 important areas if they're careful and they know who to talk to and they know who to work with, and they're getting support. So that's my mission.
Yeah, that's cool. Have you found have you found that with the clients, so you work with, the people will kind of, they'll ask you to help with one element and then realize that perhaps there's other elements that they hadn't anticipated that you can help within that execution, or within other kind of.
Yeah. So I think I want to work, and I'm going to be giving birth to this service in probably about 2 weeks' time. I've been working on the website for like 3 months, crafting the story, and I'm going to be dropping that in a couple of weeks. So all my photography has been being done and the words have been crafted. So the offering is not actually live. And in answer to your question, I suspect that when I have put it out there, the conversations that I'm going to need to have will be alive to what it is that the kind of organizations I want to work with understand is what they need to do better. And that, invariably I hope to gently educate them as to other areas of their business that they might like to consider doing more with. Or it might be that I find people coming to me and they're fully aware that, these 4 areas of their business could be doing a little bit better, and they like the idea of somebody rather than 4 different external agencies costing a fortune. They'd rather work with one person. And I should also say that it's my intention to work with people for a year. So rather than fly in and do one piece of brand strategy work, or, one project around employee well-being, or one UX deep dive, or one sponsorship strategy piece, I'd rather get to know the founders for a year, so that we're not rushing the story as well. Because the other thing I see is that a lot of story creation, obviously everybody is talking about storytelling at the moment. I don't know if I've seen that much around the kind of, let's call it, shadow side of one's heritage stories. And I think particularly in the world that we live in at the moment, it's something I want to do, to create a space for founders to talk about stuff that perhaps is their own personal stuff, or something they've inherited in a building, in a business that they're now working. Maybe it's not a founder, maybe it's a business leader of some kind, leading a business where they know that there's stuff that, maybe has needed to be brushed under the carpet, could be the argument. But, there's potentially ways of mitigating past truths.
Yeah, interesting.
Positive. So
Fascinating. Yeah, well, there'd be a rich vein for to work with.
yeah. And I guess this is, a psychotherapy angle on this, to kind of provide space as well as strategy for people to reflect on their stories, just to kind of invite people, first of all, to come forward with what they think their story is, because so much of that ownership and sense of baggage in some cases needs to be unpicked before we can come up with something that they are happy to, talk about and invite others to talk about. I do think there's quite a lot of work there, hence the year, working with a small number of organizations for a year, basically. Perhaps you can talk to us about how much time you tend to spend with a company. What does that look like? What does the journey of work?
Yeah, I get, yeah, we work both in a kind of tactical, one-off way if there's a specific objective, and also work with some clients over a longer period, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Obviously that way, well, you can create shorthand, you can be completely aligned with what it is they're looking to achieve. The process just continues to get faster. You can build momentum. So yeah, there's we work in both ways. But yeah, it is enjoyable working with businesses over a longer period when we can really significantly see, the impact that we're having.
So let's get into, we've talked about some of the big picture stuff, which is lovely, but I think people would really appreciate hearing some of the maybe more technical detail here. And we talk a lot in my community, Better Bolder Braver, about repurposing content and how that's a great way of saving money, saving time, and just generally getting a message that we understand people need to hear, as my business partner Simon says, on average 11 times before it lands. So when somebody gets a film made with you, is there then ways you can kind of cut and paste it up into other bits and bobs? How would one repurpose a video, for example?
Yeah.
Do you think about it?
I feel like, sorry.
I was just going to say, because forgive me, I'm not a filmmaker, but do people come to you and say, right, we want something that we could take a short clip of for socials, or, how do you plan ahead in terms of marketing content with the stuff that you make?
Yeah, I think when we work with clients over a longer period, we look to kind of build up like a treasure chest of kind of content. But there is a slight risk of trying to create stuff like modular, to create things that are modular, because again, it comes back to we want to hold the audience in the highest possible regard, and if the audience feel like they're getting something that's just reformatted from something else, they'll switch off like that. Like people's attention spans are just, I guess they're being ever more discerning and ever more video content that is coming across their screens. So I think, but having said that, we'll look to create something that's distinct and unique. And if there is a way for us to gather content to create something at a later stage, we'll create that body of work that can help to illustrate things. But I feel like, it's what we do tend to do is when we create one of our films, we'll think, how can we do within this shoot? How can we create a 30-seconder that will work on Instagram or LinkedIn, or will and that can give people a little fresh perspective within the film. And I think, that is a way to drive people to that hero piece. But yeah, ultimately, I guess we tend to look at the films that we create in two ways. So one of which would be a hero film that would be getting across a message in a way that's distinct, and then there may be other content that will be perhaps a little bit more disposable is not the word, but can we edit this? I don't want to use that word. Disposable is like not a great word, right? Because you create something and it's there to be out there, and it's gotten rid of, basically.
Do you mean transient?
Transient, I mean like content that's going to be there, that will only exist on social, and it's not going to be used and revisited in 2 or 3 years time.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing you say is like, well, I'm wondering if if I was the marketing manager who'd appointed you to make a film, my inclination after that would be to then take the main themes that you have come up with, maybe then put together a little bank of things related to those themes. So like a blog post about this, then a series of social posts about it, an interview with someone about that theme, and just kind of spreading that out to the work that I'm trying to do now. Let's take something tangible. Tell us a story about one client that you've worked with recently that you think has come up with a great film that you've produced and created that had a number of interesting themes in it, or something like that, just as something to work with.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay. So say if there's two different formats of film, so one of which being a kind of hero film, which will have a narrative at the heart of it that will take you on a journey, and whether it's a minute and a half or 4 minutes, it will keep you compelled and will tell a message in a way that is memorable. And and there'll be other content that will exist on social that will be helping them with some of their business objectives. So one of them might be, we really want to put our people forward. So we've done a lot of work with a company called Compton, who are design-led commercial agents, and they specialize in the city fringe area. So Shoreditch and Clerkenwell. And their challenge was, we've got 25 people that work with us. We want to humanize the company. It's a people business. Property is a people business. We want to be able to quickly familiarize our potential clients with our team. So we create the larger kind of the films that are crafted, heavily crafted, and then we'll also create these almost bite-sized films that will, with one intention in mind, which is to humanize and familiarize the team with the audience. So that will have, they're just smaller undertakings, and we can, so whether it's creating quizzes or whether it's creating people talking about truths about the other one that they hadn't shared, or whether it's little interview films. And so, those have a particular intention, and then the other films that take more craft will have a different intention. And I think it's really mindful. I guess two things that we're just laser focused on is like, what's your business challenges? What is it that you want to achieve? And also, whatever we're doing, let's be in the minds of the audience, and how we're going to create something that's going to either inform or entertain, sometimes both.
How long do people tend to like to use the films for? Is that how long is a piece of string?
Yeah, I guess it depends. I guess there's a piece at the beginning often, which is if we're telling the brand story, we want to create something that's going to last for years. We want to create something that we know that video, that technology is rapidly advancing, but realistically, if we can create something that's, we still watch Blade Runner, we still watch Ben-Hur. Like, I'm not comparing a word to that, but it's things have a shelf life that can be really extended if you take time to craft the narrative in the right way. So, I think that initial piece, if you are telling the world what it is that you believe in and what your purpose is, it's a great opportunity to take your time and do it properly, because you don't want to have to do that every year. You want to do something that sits there and feels relevant, and then you can have other, as you say, other elements that will come in and talk about how you're changing and how you're dealing with other challenges.
Yeah. I'm also imagining that, for example, if I then wanted to profile the chief exec for, being on podcasts or, getting interviewed in the FT, that I would then use the film to share with journalists, to share with podcast hosts. It's a great way of giving a really quick insight into the sorts of things that might come up in that conversation, and therefore using a film to generate a whole load of other content for other purposes. So for example, I'm imagining if just to take it to the other end of the spectrum, if you like, were Compton to want to do something in the community, and any charity that they wanted to support is applying for funding for a grant somewhere, and wants to talk about who else they have partnerships with in the area and who else is supporting them, to be able to send the film to say, these are the kind of companies that support us, and these are the kind of things that they believe in, and they believe in us, and that's why we're applying for funding, because we'd love to believe in us too, and be in our world with these people who kind of feel so strongly about buildings and building heritage and blah, 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 you know, so it can serve so many purposes, almost more than what somebody could even imagine, right, when they first come to you. And
yeah, I think yeah, it's great when you can create something and then it's used in different formats, and people can quickly get a sense, quickly familiarize, quickly feel comfortable about a business and what it is that they care about. Because I think that's often not that it's often not talked about, like the businesses that we deal with. Like they're like, you know, tell us, you know, what is it? What's your purpose? Like, why are you in business? What is it that you believe? And they have people, a lot of people have a vague notion of it. Oh, well, we work for these people and we do this. I'm like, well, that's very like, and it's transactional, which of course that's the essence of enterprise, right? But working with people to say, look, you could really choose, you don't have to do this, right? You could choose to do any different things in your life potentially. And I think working with business leaders to figure out what is it that motivates them, and what is it that they want to see happen in the future. If you can get that distilled and get them clear about it, people become buoyed and they feel energized, because they're like, all right, this is what they can become, you know, even better at what they do and even more focused, and it starts to have ripple effects. And it's crucial, right? It's crucial. There's that journey. We want to become more conscious about what it is that we're doing and what we're creating, rather than just slave to whatever business that you're already running. Oh, well, we've got mouths to feed, we need to keep doing this. So I think, you know, it's crucial. I think it sounds like what you're doing in terms of taking a step back and figuring out, what are we doing here? Let's try and assess what's the impact that we're making, what is it that we want to make, and why am I in business, why am I doing this?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I not only couldn't have said it more beautifully, but I'm so glad it's recorded. Somehow I might find a way through Descriptive, just taking that way of explaining things out of this. Yeah, you've got it 100%. Also, I just want to help people get out of their own way. And I think a lot of people are ashamed to stand up and talk about their businesses. And sometimes we do a lot of work with coaches around, you know, their manifesto and their big picture system change. Sometimes they may well not be able to say, I personally can do X, Y, and Z to inform this change. But if they can stand behind something. So for example, Simon and I have got a manifesto on our Better World, a Braver website that stands for good, ethical marketing, to stop the toxic marketing bullshit, to be different from the 10x your income, to be more inclusive, and to, you know, stop before it gets really bad the awful tactics that we see are in place in the world of marketing to psychologically manipulate people. Now, we can't take responsibility single-handedly for changing that, but we can do one thing, and this is what we do. And when people can talk to the big picture system change that they'd like to see in the world, and then they can talk to how they can, you know, make that possible if they exist, i.e. we need to sell some stuff, we need to get your money for our products if you want them, because then we can do these things. You know, we look after our people, blah, 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 blah. And we, you know, we take responsibility for our environment. We're not just making money to feed people and pay bills and go home. And we really want to talk about that. And that's really important to us. Not only is that compelling as a sell, but it's also going to make people feel better and going to make them die feeling like they've done something good in life. And if I can help people in companies feel that way, in companies that I believe in, and help them punch, you know, with or even above the big boys, just for diversity in society, then, you know, that's why I feel okay to shout about my stuff and sell my stuff and be clear about what it is I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to sell. So I'm trying to model that for other founders. And I think you're doing the same. So, you know, that's why we love it, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. And I think it's like, I think there's there's an opportunity to ask questions. There's an opportunity to ask questions of our clients, and I think there's sometimes it's a softly approach in terms of what else is there to be doing, like in terms of your community, in terms of having a positive impact. And I think when we first started, I think that was really a lot more central for what it was that we were looking to do. It's like helping people to enhance their social impact. And the way that we were set up, maybe because at the stage that people were trying to talk to us, we didn't have the opportunity really to do as much as we wanted. But I think the longer that we start to work with companies, the more that we can challenge, give them opportunities to explore that, because it's an area that it's really fascinating. And no man is no company is an island. It's like how, without getting too heavy on it, the future of civilization is probably going to involve capitalism, and capitalism has been crucial in helping billions lead lives that have hope, opportunity, have create independence, self-realization. And until there's a better model, it's the one that we have, right? So it's the enterprises have been historically, well, the way they're set up is faceless and anonymous, and don't defer any responsibility to the individual. But I think there is a sea change happening now, and I think this is why these, what you're doing is really helpful, and in the ways that we do it. Also, it's what we want to be doing. There's an opportunity for businesses to think outside their business goals in order to help the many challenges that are out there. And I think, as you say, it's like there's ultimately, if you're talking about with the big businesses, there's it's attractive for shareholders because it makes the business more attractive. And people want to be doing business with people who take it seriously, take their impact and role in society seriously. So yeah, there's hopefully we're at a point where there is a bit of a sea change, and not only does it make sense morally, which is an abstract concept, but it makes sense in a business sense, right?
Right. And I'm trying to make the point that you don't have to spend any more money to do it, which right. I hope is a welcome message, because I think people believe that in order to do good in the world, you need to shave off a significant amount of money, and you don't need to. You can be really creative actually with stuff that you're already sitting on, the gold mine of stories, the content, and it's about creativity. And there are those of us in this business able to be creative with you, alongside you, and help to make more streamlined and more effective the businesses that you have, and the people that you have, and the money that you have. And I'm really glad we've gone heavy. Without getting into the detail, as you say, we're recording this in mid-November 2023. Not only what's going on in the Middle East is going on, but many, many other crises. And I'll be honest, I'm building this business up, and the last month or so has taken me on a real personal existential journey, because I've thought, who am I to be talking about this new storytelling business when all of this shit's going down? But what I've realized is this is all I can do, actually. And I think that's what I'm in the business of, trying to help other people in the world who feel completely overwhelmed and helpless, responsible and shamed by having not seen what's going on before our eyes, previous to now. It's to say, it's okay. We all have an inner child who is scared, and we would all like to do something. And yes, we all feel like a tiny, tiny drop in the ocean. But let's start with where we are, what we have, what we can do, and it will be better than not doing anything at all. And if that means, you know, as a vineyard in Sussex, doing a lovely program for a local, you know, school around agriculture, then good on you. Start there. That's my mission.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think that's a cool way to look at it. It's like, what's that small step? What's that small thing? And it doesn't have to be, before you know it, those things become a habit, and the impact is really big. But yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. Just like take one action, and take one action and see what is in front of you. What can you do with the tools that you have at your disposal?
I reckon that your friends at Compton have no idea that they are of great value to, for example, somebody like English Heritage, because they probably know more about the buildings in Shoreditch than anyone else. You know, if they've made it their business, albeit because they want to buy and sell and whatever properties in East London, what they've probably collected along the way, alongside their own story, is an amazing amount of knowledge about a very specific architectural area, you know, and people don't even realize that they're becoming experts in stuff. It's almost incidental. They don't realize what gold dust they're sitting on in terms of knowledge, and to just think, wow, that's really, what else can I do with this? Like, have I chatted to the Museum of London? Do they know the stuff that I know? Like, how can I help with just nothing more than what I already know? And when people start thinking about that, it's like really lovely that they might be able to give back without any financial investment over and above. It's just like, I'd love to come and chat to your kids, because guess what, we've bought and sold like blah 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 and blah business, and did you know that this was a that and that was a this? And it's like, wow, that's cool, you know. It's just building
really
community.
That's cool. Yeah, seeing those kind of those connections is it's really valuable. And as I say, that using what you have and kind of to connect or to help to make an impact for other kind of elements or other sectors that you may not have looked at is really fascinating. That's a great idea.
I'm glad you think so. I think one of the things I'm going to have to defend is, how on earth can you be an expert across 4 different things? But I would rather be proud that I'm a jack of all trades. I've collected a number of experiences over 20 years, and I think you have too. And then you get to this point where none of it made sense at the time, but on retrospect, everything makes sense. And that's us crafting the story of our experience and being able to tell it to someone in a way that it's going to land with them, and why is it relevant. And that's kind of what I think we're trying to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you know, those they're rarely, those stories are rarely linear, right? It's kind of zigzagging. And I think from a film structure point of view, the purely linear films won't keep your attention. So you know, it's about, you know, creating twists and turns and building on previous experiences to subvert expectations, or build drama, energy, emotion, which, you know, hopefully you can bring that to the clients that you work with.
I think that's the best note to finish this on. I love you. Thank you, Joe. It's been
you too.
Looking forward to working with you, I hope, somewhere along the way. And thanks everyone for listening. If you want to find Joe, Joe is on LinkedIn and in the other usual places, and I'll put a link where I can in the show notes to Joe's website, One Giant. Yeah, thanks so much for being here, Joe.
Yeah, real pleasure. Really enjoyed speaking with you. All right, nice one, Frances.
Take care.